Working in a family business can be a challenge, right? So if you work in a family business and you've got some communication challenges that you're having, or just communication challenges in any business with your team, you're going to love our chat with Coach Andy. He talks about a communication tool that is a game changer for business. So jump in, let's have a chat with Coach Andy. Andy O'Brien, business coach. So great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Andy, tell me, why did you become a business coach?
Oh, well, when I first started this, I'll give you the original reason and why I still do it. So I went through a massive transition. This is actually our third company that my wife and I have owned. And when I transitioned back to the corporate world, my dad had sold his business, and it went through. My dad and I weren't speaking at that time due to me leaving the business. And the long story short is I can remember driving down the road with my wife, and I always drove, she never did. And I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I opened the newspaper, and in the newspaper, my eye went right to it. In the bankruptcy was my dad and my aunt had to file bankruptcy to get out from underneath the business. So when I came out of the corporate world, which was a problematic situation, I was looking for something to do, and I had seen the Action Coach model, and I knew I had to have something that allowed other business owners, just like my dad, have a trusted advisor, have somebody, they had accountants and bankers, but their line of work is they tell you what to do. And then most business owners just go and then they don't do it anyway. I wanted something where I could touch families and to help them so that they wouldn't have to go through those challenges that my dad and my mom and my sisters went through.
And why do you stay in it? You said, why you joined, and you mentioned why you still stay in it. Is that the same?
Yeah, it really is. Through COVID, I do it because I love to see that business owner, regardless if it's family or not, get that vacation, be able to take his wife somewhere, hire more people. That's exciting. That's the stuff that, like, oh my gosh, that matters. I just got goosebumps telling you that. But yeah, that's why we do it, is because we put others above self.
Yeah, I mean, we're business coaches, right? But it's more than the business. We're literally improving lives.
That's really what it is, touching people. I can't tell you how many times at Kryptonite, you walk in, you ask business owners 2 or 3 questions. And one of the most powerful questions that I get the most visceral responses, give me one word to describe you today. And tears just flow because they're just in a place of despair, and they've not had a trusted advisor, or they just have never had anybody ask them that type of a question about who they are.
So Andy, what's the number one strategy, or what's the number one thing that you find gets the biggest results in business today?
It's really a 2-part question. The first thing is that we always hear is not enough time. You've heard that. You've probably had plenty of people talk to you about that. But they're tied directly together with not enough money. And so many times I'll use the analogy, business owners, they don't have enough time to do what they're supposed to be doing. And let's just cut all this, the garbage out of it and just say it like it is. They're doing everything from toilets to garbage collection to over operations to finance to HR to sales to marketing. The first thing we have to solve is the time conundrum, right? We have to figure out where all their time is going. So that's the first thing that gets the biggest results, because that's the most stressful. When you go into a coaching relationship, I always tell people we coach for life. In our firm, we have a 38.6-month retention with clients. So they stay a long time. Clients have been here 10 years, clients that have been here 1 year, all add together. But it's solving that time issue with not adding so much more to their plate, but just deciphering where's the best use of their time, and actually helping them do a owner's matrix of what their time's worth in the business, and help them look at it from a mathematical equation, not an emotional equation. And so by the math,
That,
go ahead.
can you, sorry to cut you off there. Can you explain to me what that matrix is?
Okay, so it's really interesting. In the owner's matrix, you've seen the skill fun matrix where you overlay high skill, high fun, high value. Well, what we do is we overlay the owner's matrix over the top of it. We use the business revenue. We divide it by the hours in a year. So everybody argues this with me. So for the sake of argument, there are 2,080 hours in a year, and business owners should only work 2,000 of those hours. Now we can argue, oh, I work 45 or 70 or 90. We can argue that later. But the reality is our job as a coach is to get them to that 2,000 hours. So that business runs without them every day. So we take that math equation and we put them in the upper right corner. So if you have $1 million business and you divide it by 2,000, that means that owner's time is worth $500 an hour. And then you start doing, okay, so then you list it out, what their role, HR, finance, their attorney, their accountant. You go all the way down to the lowest value of the employee. Now, when I say value of the employee, it's hourly wage, not value like I'm being disrespectful, because it's a math equation. So then you do the division of what the difference is between those two. And then you ask them, as a CEO, as an owner, there are specific roles they should be. So fiduciary responsibility, planning, vision, mission, culture. Sometimes it's sales, right? Sometimes they are the only person that deals with the vendors. Our job is to quantify where the best use of their time is, right? So that's why we do time. Time has to be an area that we look at. So when they can recognize that they spend 80 to 90% of their time on the left-hand side doing admin, doing customer service, doing marketing, doing, working on the shop floor or working in manufacturing, we can show them mathematically how much the business loses per hour based on a math equation. Now, again, there's the mindset journey they go through, but when you show them mathematically, and then you show them like, oh, I don't have that person. So if you did hire somebody, let's look at the math that goes with it. So we show that to them so we can solve the first thing. How do we get them focused on what's the most important in the business? And, as you know, Michelle, in our world, we are very planning, coaching, education, training, motivation. But planning part of it is really big. So when we take them through that, we get them to focus on the most important issues. Now, some of it's going to be cash related. So when we start measuring time, the other thing that we find gets the most results for any business owners is when they gain that hour back, or they gain that 2 hours back, or they gain that 15 minutes back. It's, okay, what are the numbers in the business? Getting them to focus on the numbers in the business. MQLs, marketing qualified leads, SQL, sales qualified leads, getting them focused on leads, conversion rate, getting them focused on the average dollar sale, getting them focused on margins. We have to start getting them to measure those things that are important. And those two, that we tie those two together, especially in our firm, because once we solve the time area and they start seeing the results of, oh, I know this number. Great. What does that mean to your business? We take it so far that with planning and management, that our clients need to know what it costs every day to open their business and what it costs to run their business every day plus profit. And we break that down into the hour, and then we start getting traction with them.
So the owner's matrix, then what happens if you've got an owner that doesn't like doing some things and prefers to do some of the things? Like, they may not prefer to be doing the things that, reap the most rewards financially in the business.
Absolutely.
Do you tell them to then go learn those skills, or do you then say hire somebody who's good at that?
Well, Michelle, you and I have really strong personalities. Do you like to be told what to do? Do you personally like to be told what to do?
No.
Okay, I say that tongue in cheek. Owners don't like to be told what to do. Like we can show them, but what we do is like sometimes they do. Like I've got great owners. They are incredible. And I'll go through a story today with you about them. They're incredible at sales. They are like their mojo is put them in a room full of their customers and it's a money making machine. But then when it comes to financial management, they don't want to do that. So then we have to go, okay, let's hire for that. Let's use leverage. Let's find somebody who's going to be your bookkeeper, your CPA, your controller, just somebody who can manage those. And then we will teach them how to check the check, right? What are the important things they need to learn in order to be able to read the financials so that if that's an area they don't want to be in, that they have optics over it. Because, in today's society, there's people that do shady things in business and it's just a check the checker type of mentality. But is that exactly that of, hey, okay, I love to be over here. Okay, understand. How are we going to teach
But
that?
you still need to know the things that you need to know in your business, right?
Absolutely.
You hear those stories all the time of people, unfortunately, that have done the wrong thing in your business and your team. So it's still important that you're across all of those things.
Absolutely. You look, you may not want to do it. Um, you may not like doing it, but you still need to know. And it doesn't have to be at the micro level. Like, let's just use our company, for instance. We have 4 owners in our business. We have one person that all they do is numbers. They love numbers. They build spreadsheets. They could spend all damn day in a spreadsheet. That's not my job. I do not want to do it. But when it comes to our financials, I know exactly where the stuff's supposed to be. And if I have question about it, I can go directly to the source. That's okay. It's just that there has to be a lever that you pull to say, okay, Bobby's doing this. Andy's not doing this. Tanner's doing it. Or if your business, who's the next person in line? And it is a trust factor. A lot of these owners, they've been burned. They've hired the wrong people. They've hired their brothers, sisters, cousins, friend who's a dog walker to do some job that they're nowhere near qualified for.
Yeah, so true. So, Andy, I'd love to hear an example of a client that you've worked with. Can you tell me a story of someone that's come to you with a challenge and what's their journey?
Wow, that's a great one. I'm originally from North Iowa. As you know, Michelle, I started my career in Iowa. We have transitioned here to Central Texas due to a multitude of things. We still have clients in that marketplace, but this client, it's a son and a father and son. And if you guys know me well enough, that's kind of where I fit in is family businesses very well. But the son came to me and him and his dad had started the business. So him and his dad started the business, oh my God, 12, 15 years ago now. Um, and the dad, Kevin, had a full-time job. He was the public works director for a city in Iowa. His son, Shane, and one of his buddies were running the televising and sewer company. Their company's called Central Iowa Television. They are a phenomenal company. They have come so far. So when we first started with them, they were hemorrhaging cash. They were about $1 million in revenue, and they had lost, and I know this is going to be divided up, but they had lost like $60,000 that year, right? So that was in 2017. And so we, first immediate lesson. So we met, I talked to them. I talked to Shane first, and then I went in and met Kevin, because Kevin's the decision maker. He is the majority shareholder. My fight with my dad was perfect. My name wasn't on the building. His was, but I thought mine was. So the first lesson
You probably heard that a few times, didn't you?
totally, yeah, totally heard that. But when I was visiting with them, they were both saying almost the identical same thing, but neither one of them heard it. We literally had to do a DISC assessment on the spot and teach them why their journey was different, how they looked at things. That was in the strategy session. And it was one of those, like the light bulb went on and went, what? Like it was the opportunity for them to actually start having a conversation together. So that was then, right? We've had ups and downs. We've had it around the corner, but it was really interesting. So we just did these. So this is a great time for this. So in year over year for the last 5 years since 2017, on average, they've had 25.75% increase in their revenue. Now, revenue's vanity. You know that, Michelle. Revenue is a total vanity number. It doesn't really mean anything, because if you're $1 million business and you're spending $1 million, you're just a shitty owner. But in this business model, that was then. So we just ran the numbers. So negative EBITDA in 17 through 2022, 562% increase in EBITDA. Yeah, and this year was probably their toughest year. If I had to be a betting guy, I actually know all the numbers, but due to winter, like you have to remember up there, you don't do a lot for 3 months. You know, there's snow on the ground's frozen, it goes down 4.5, maybe 6 feet. But this year they came out swinging, and they strapped in. Now there's 2 sons in the business. There's 3 other main key employees. They strapped in this year, and they had a massive change this year. They went from like $3 million to 4.2, and massive change in the EBITDA and the pay down of debt. I mean, they really, really got after it. And not only that, but the thing that these 5 guys did, if you look at exit strategies for business, so people are going to listen to this. When you start looking at a business owner and they want to exit, right? There are major levers that we pull in order for the business owner to get value out of the business, right? So first thing is the business owner isn't doing everything. So over the last 18 months, he has picked specific people. So his son, Shane, who we've been talking about, basically vice president, general manager of the business now. He's not out of sales, but he's running and managing operations. They have an operations director that does it daily. They have a guy in charge of maintenance. They have a guy in charge. The other son is in charge of production, which is out in the field. They got another guy that's just in charge of sales. Well, just with all those 5, they have increased the value of that business by almost 50%, because now the business owner isn't doing everything every day. And that's a critical driver for that owner. So Kevin right now he's looking at the business for his team of what's next. Does the team buy it? Does he sell it to somebody else? But all of these guys helped him get there this year, and he knows it.
So I want to understand, just take me back, Andy. You talked about they were bleeding money, $60,000 when you first met them. They weren't connecting on the same level of conversation. So the step 1, I want to understand, I want you to walk me through how you get go from that to the kind of increase that you mentioned of 563% of EBITDA. Tell me, what were the steps on, what were they? Obviously it was a communication point, so you helped them understand and communicate better. What was next? That was the very first part of it.
It was getting them to understand that when somebody speaks in the business, just because, as you know, we run a family business. I was in a family business. One of the first factors that I learned a long time ago is just because you're a son doesn't mean you can't add value. And it also doesn't mean because you're another person isn't in the business every day doesn't mean they don't know. There were specific wedges between those two based on proximity. Well, I do all the work every day. I'm not appreciated. Well, I fund it. Nobody cares. The very first thing we had to do was get them to understand that, and this goes to any business owner, but specifically for these two, is they couldn't do it without each other. That was the first, like, oh, one of my favorite sayings all time that I tell everybody is none of us are as smart as all of us combined. And so we got them to start communicating on a level of, let me just hear what you have to say. Let me be open to the suggestion rather than, nope, don't want to hear it. Nope, you weren't there. But just to be open to a business conversation, because those two, along with me and my dad, persons became personal. So first thing we had to do was had to get them to start addressing each other as by their names and not dad and son, and get rid of all that crap in the business. This is a business conversation. Second thing that we had to do is we had to draw boundaries up for them and their family. Okay, when are we going to talk business? And let me just be clear. This rule was broken quite a bit in the first year. Board meetings were birthday parties. Board meetings were Sunday dinners. I mean, stuff that never should go home always went home. And it took some time. But that was one of the first, it was awareness, right? Awareness part of it. Second thing is when we started looking at hemorrhaging cash that went along with it, it was just that we didn't know our numbers. We didn't have any idea what our cost of goods were. We didn't have any idea what break even was. We didn't have any idea if we were profitable or not, because their mindset was, we have $1 million business, right? We have $1 million business. What could possibly go wrong? Well, there's no money left over. And when one person is constantly shucking money in it so everybody can be paid, once we got them to recognize what profit was and how to measure it, and just for out of definitions here, Kevin, great guy, but he believed that working all the hours in the world to get a job done was more important. And as you and I know, one of the top things we look at in profitability is we bid a job based on 40 hours a week. We don't bid a job based on 80 with double time. So when we took their hours from 80 hours a week for some of their guys down to 50, that was the reasonable compromise. Let's just be honest. That's where we compromised. But we saw a massive increase as soon as we took their hours down. And to this day, that is one of the things is their guys, they're going to end up, because of the travel and getting places, we have a cap at 53 hours in their business. They do. I don't, but I'm still a part of it. We're still coach clients as this new generation comes in, but they have a cap on hours. They also had to recognize once we got that done, we could start seeing profit. But the other side of it too is every time they had profit, they had equipment that they had, duct tape and baling wire that they were putting so much money into to keep it running that we finally got them to recognize that if we got rid of the equipment and took a higher payment, we still saved thousands of dollars a year. Well, not only do we save thousands of dollars a year, the production of the business went up, 600%. Now we're starting to see a trend line. And it was really interesting as business owners, that success marker we were just talking about. It's interesting. Once a business owner sees one success, they want more. They want to learn more. And so that was a big step. In year 2, Kevin retired from Public Works and came in full time as the CEO. And we had to go right back into communication and how do we talk to each other and what does it mean? Because now people are you're not separated by 30 miles. Now you're separated by 6 feet.
Yeah. So, I mean, the tool that you use then to help with the communication, you mentioned the DISC profile tool. Can you just explain to me what is DISC for those that don't know? But it's not just about the profile of the DISC, it's also the motivators. Maybe you can explain to me about that tool, but then how you used it in this case and how that helped them.
Absolutely. So obvious for me, I call it a communication tool. I know there's, Hippocrates developed the science behind all of the different personality communication styles, from Myers-Briggs to bank code to fuzzy animals to birds to colors. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to look at it, right? But let's just call it, there were only 4 communication styles. And so what we did for that time was just looking at what is their communication style. And because we do practice this in our business, is what are the conflicts? What are the common conflicts that come up, and actually just verbalizing them? Hey, have you ever heard this and it pisses you off? Oh yeah. And then what about this? Oh yeah. And then what about this? Have you listened to our conversations? No, I lived it, and I see it every day. So the conversation was just to get them to understand there's going to be triggers. Right now, as a son in a business, I know today at 54, the triggers. It was funny. We went back home and I was talking to my dad, and my daughter was sitting on the other side. She's like, Grandpa, did you ever just want to kill Dad? He looked over at me. He's 84 every day. So I get it. So when Kevin and Shane are having these conflicts, it's not based on maliciousness. It's based on understanding. So then you look at the motivator side of it. Well, the son was individualistic. He wanted power. He wanted control. All right. His dad was altruistic. His dad he would do everything at the sacrifice of himself for others. And so we had this constant shift of what it was and what it looked like. Today, that son, Shane, has grown into this outstanding operator. Outstanding. Right? He's grown so much because now he understands this. He's using those tools with his team now. When there's conflict, he's in the mix with them to help them understand. Not without its challenges, as all of us. They're still young men. They're still in their 30s. But the point being is, every one of us has a communication style. And every one of us has a motivator in business. Business owners are no different. They have things that really, really drive them. And until we uncover those, I can guess. It's just like throwing the craps table. But it's better to get them to take an assessment. It's $125. Take the assessment. It will help you, help your team, and it will help me be able to communicate to you as a coach, as a mentor, and as a team member of your team.
And so what's an example of a motivator?
For them or for any of us motivators, what makes them really want to do more? What makes, and that motivator is just that, what makes them want more? And there's 7 different motivators, and I don't have the list in front of me, so I'm going to screw them up. But the basis of it is we are ranked when we do the assessments, just like in DISC, based on how you answered questions. Motivators are based on how you answer questions. So I always use that individualistic one because so many people with a high D, which is dominant and assertive, their number one motivator is power, right? It's individualistic. They want to be known for themselves. They don't always ask for help because, it's their idea and they want it to be theirs.
Judgment. There's no right or wrong.
No.
It's just interesting to learn.
Yeah.
You need D's in every organization.
You need all of the communication styles. It's so funny. Just another quick story. We did a DISC assessment for another longtime client of ours. We had 13 employees, and there were 3 owners. 2 of the owners were high S's, high C's, and one of the owners was a high D. Sorry, I just laugh when I say this, but the other 9 employees were all S's and C's. It's like, no wonder we can't make a freaking decision. We are frozen in time.
And you attract people like you too, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
think about it for a second. The reason I like people that have all the different personalities, so D's are dominant and assertive. If you're in danger, or you're going into battle, somebody needs to lead, right? Not going to say it's going to be right, but they will make it a point to be in charge. Then you have high I's. I'm a high I, high D. I like to be liked. I like to have fun. I like to laugh. But I also have that bipolar switch that I flip over and I become that person like, what's next? Let's make a decision. Then you have high S's, which are very steady. They like order. They don't like change. They like everything where it is. They want to make sure that everybody's included. They want to make sure everybody's doing well. They rely a lot on feelings, right? And so then you have high C's, which are highly analytical. And you see those types of people in engineering, finance, architecture, banking,
Detail
very high
orientated.
detailed, sometimes a paralysis analysis. And if you look at an org chart for any business, there are 7 pillars in it, right? CEO, IT, HR, sales, marketing, operations, and finance. So all of those communication styles fit really well in all the areas. And you can't always
So
have
when you're
D's.
when you're looking at your org chart and you've got positions vacant and you advertise for roles in the organization, it's important to use this as a tool to determine what's the gap, but also what disc do you need to fill that role. It's a balance for the organization, is what you're saying.
It has to be, right. This organization that had all one side of it, it wasn't that they made bad decisions, but they were always like, well, if it's changed, the answer was no. But it was always really slow. They couldn't pivot the boat because they were always like, I call it kick the can down the road. They did. They would just kick the can. We'll figure it out next week. Well, when they start bringing in new blood that want to make decisions, it causes a lot of frustration. Every organization needs all the communication and all the motivator styles. And it's the leader's owner's job to understand it so he can lead his team.
Okay, so what you'd recommend to business owners is, one, do a disc assessment and motivators for all of your current team and yourselves.
Yes.
And look at your org chart to work out what the positions are, or use the owner's matrix as an example. You talked about that.
Yes.
And then look at the gaps in the business to work out where you need to hire. Then work out from the disc profiles of everyone on the team what maybe a gap would be.
Yeah. And you know what? This is really interesting that you brought that up, the gap. Sometimes you have all the right people on the team in the wrong seats because of somebody's emotional disposition. And they might be better suited for another position. And that's the thing you have to really start looking at is maybe you don't have it on your team. I don't know. But if you look around your team, and it was really interesting, I had a conversation with a mentor last week, and he asked me the question, what is your genius within your business? And it was a great question because it brought me to hey, if we're looking at our team and we want to know what their genius is, not based on what I think, but what they think, and how does that tie if we did the same thing and we went around the room and said, hey, Michelle, what's their genius? Hey, Andy, what's their genius? We might see some trend lines to go, you know what? I think, Michelle, you would be a really good person for finance. I know you may not have all the skills, but we can teach skills, but you have the data and the information in your brain and it works. This might be a good fit.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You might have the people in the wrong role.
It happens all the time. You've seen it. I see it every day. Like we have people that are, I call in sales. I came out of 20 plus years in the sales world. We know that when we hire in the sales world, we want somebody very high I with a little D and a little C because they got to be able to track. And what we do is we're like, oh, we want to put a C in there. They're really good at technology. Yeah, but they're like talking to wet paint. Nobody's good. They have to be able to talk to people. They want to do everything behind the keyboard. They don't want to talk to people. COVID for a high C was perfect. They were like, good. I don't have to talk to anybody, no emotions.
Sorry for all those high C's out there.
Yeah, sorry. You recovering engineers, I apologize, but when you're thinking about COVID, you're like, this is perfect. I don't have to talk to anybody.
And they struggled coming out of COVID because then they had to talk to people again.
Oh, people were messing up their schedules. Like high C, you want stuff done, give it to a high C or a D. High C's will knock everything out. They will schedule 15-minute increments and they will kill it. You want to have somebody who wants to have a party? Call me. No, I'm just.
Yes, true.
But that's the reality of it. You've got to look at your team. I mean, any leader, for Kevin, for Shane, for anybody looking at this, it is the leader's duty to learn how to communicate with his entire team.
Very powerful. I love that. Thank you. So many gold nuggets, Andy. So I'm going to now ask you 3 quick questions. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Oh, can I pick my own or do I have to pick others?
You can pick your own. That's your favorite.
That was a shameless plug. Actually, my new favorite business book was this one right here. Sorry. By Alex Horowitz, $100 Million Offers. Brad obviously gave us this book. It's one of my favorites right now.
Yes, great book. What is your book that you've published? Let's just throw it in there.
All right, I got to find it. It's right over here because I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want you shadow banded, but this is the book. It just came out January 1.
WTF. Okay, let's read it out if people are listening and not watching. WTF.
Yeah, WTF.
Family business.
Yep.
Andy O'Brien.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you, Andy. Question number 2, who's been the best mentor or coach for you?
Oh, there's been so many. I can't leave it to one. I would group it into my Action Coach family. So I'll give it to you, Brad, obviously, great. Hutmacher, great. Bruce Wilson, Andrew Johnston, Monty Wyatt. You, of course, hit the list. Bruza. I mean, we've got all of these great minds. And the one thing, again, I go back to that is none of us are as smart as all of us, but you get around these people and there's nuggets everywhere.
Yeah, you can't help but grow. Okay, question number 3. What's the best piece of business advice you ever received?
Ooh. Can I say it? Can I use this? The best piece of advice that I didn't follow that I learned the hard way? Hire to your weaknesses and hire soon. My greatest business advice was I hire an assistant who is highly organized. In my previous career, I always had customer service or I always had executives that always did the stuff so I could fly. I didn't follow that advice for 8 years. And I can do it. And the old Brad cliche is, I can't tell you how much money I lost because I didn't follow that simple instruction and pay somebody $40,000, $50,000 a year to keep me organized. That was the best advice I was ever given that I didn't learn for 8 years.
Great. Andy, so great to have you on the show. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.